As predicted by OS, everything unfolded exactly as expected. Just a few days later, during a visit where a fragrant oil box was presented to Kalya, she fell ill. She lay in bed, her face flushed with persistent fever, and her head ached incessantly. It wasn't just her head. OS' entire body ached to the point of driving her insane. Seeing Kalya's condition worsen, OS anxiously stood by the bed to care for her. Amidst the concern, OS assured Kalya not to worry, stating that she had identified a foreign perfume as the cause of the outbreak. OS believed that by completely destroying that type of perfume, the epidemic could be swiftly halted. However, Kalya found it hard to believe, questioning how a fragrance could cause illness. OS, with a serious tone, explained that the perfume she had gifted contained toxins. These toxins, when released into the air, could turn into a virus and rapidly spread. OS, recalling her suspicions about the merchants who increased the production of the perfume, immediately questioned Kalya about the importers and the businessmen involved. Kalya hesitated before revealing that the perfume importers were none other than her own father, the head of the VIA Trade Association. As for the increased production for the public, her father was also involved due to extreme fear. Despite her severe illness, Kalya tried to explain to OS that her father would never intentionally cause such harm. Moreover, she believed that the VIA Trade Association would not create an epidemic to harm the nation. Hearing this, OS was shocked and began to suspect a trap that could lead to the capture of both the VIA and NEO families. Back at the VIA mansion, despite the chaos outside, OS urgently sought her father's advice. Her father, seemingly unaware of the situation, inquired about what was happening. OS, with a sense of fear, explained that the VIA Trade Association recently imported a batch of perfume from abroad. The situation escalated when the Duke, her father, was busy assisting the Emperor in gathering supplies for an upcoming war. As a result, the trade affairs were delegated to managers. Fearing the worst, OS realized that this could be a plot by someone to harm the VIA family. However, it was too late to discuss matters with the Duke, as news arrived that the saint had surrounded the VIA mansion. Outside, the Anam group accused the VIA Trade Association of introducing toxic fragrances, causing a widespread epidemic and endangering the empire. The church's knights received orders to quickly apprehend the VIA family. The Duke, seemingly undeterred, boldly confronted the Anam group. He questioned whether they dared to accuse him face to face, insinuating that they were overstepping their bounds. Anam, unfazed, laughed manically, claiming the right to arrest him due to the harm he had allegedly caused to the emperor and the nation. OS, realizing the gravity of the situation, loudly warned Anam not to play with the lives of the empire's citizens. However, Anam, fully consumed by the joy of victory, ordered her knights to detain OS as well. In this chaotic scenario, OS once again found herself trapped in a nightmare. This time, she was sitting in the middle of a battlefield filled with smoke and fire. Trembling, she called out for destined, fearing that he might not survive and pleading for him not to leave her. Destined is now extremely weakened, with very little vitality left. His face is covered in wounds, and he struggles to use his last bit of strength to comfort her, urging her not to cry. He apologizes for not being strong enough to protect her and their country. Despite OS trying to call his name, Destined is too exhausted and lies on the ground with bleeding wounds. In his final moments, he expresses a wish to meet her again in the next life. As Destined's life comes to an end, OS is left in despair. She is unable to comprehend the reality of losing the one she loves. The scene is set with thunder echoing in the sky. The sound of the girl's voice calling the name of her beloved echoes somewhere in the pane. Suddenly, a bucket of cold water is thrown, waking Oyef. It turns out to be just a dream, and her current situation is not much better. Anime, a woman associated with COVID, is taunting her, asking her to sign a confession to avoid further suffering. Oyef, defiant, refuses to submit to this madness. Anime, frustrated by Oyef's resistance, approaches and, with dirty hands, grabs Oyef's chin, whispering threateningly. She mocks Oyef for not understanding right from wrong and insists that signing the confession will spare her from further torment. Oyef remains resolute in the face of this deranged woman. However, before Anime can carry out her threats, the second prince intervenes. He arrives like a true hero, swiftly freeing Oyef from her restraints. As he informs Oyef of the dire situation, the news of Destined's death shocks her to the core. The prince explains the misunderstandings and mistakes that led to Destined's demise. Devastated, Oyef collapses into the arms of the prince, while Anime, in her rage, wreaks havoc in the room. The prince, coldly dismissing Anime's tantrums, attends to Oyef's well-being. Despite Anime's resentment, the prince keeps his promise to help her eliminate HAID and Destined. As Anime storms off, the prince reveals an agreement he made with her, ensuring Oyef's safety. He confesses his deep emotions for her, expressing regret that she chose Destined over him. After a heartfelt declaration, the prince leaves, leaving Oyef in a state of disbelief and despair. She is now left alone, locked in a room, crying uncontrollably, unable to accept the harsh reality of Destined's death. Destined, that deceitful scoundrel, had clearly agreed with me that he would return safely. However, at this moment, the window suddenly opened, letting in a rush of wind, and a discreetly dressed young man with a cap stood before me, softly calling my name. I stopped crying, looking at this person from head to toe, but still couldn't make sense of who he was. It wasn't until he removed his cap, revealing a familiar face and black hair, that I recognized him. It was only then that I realized he had returned. He smiled gently and said, "Oyef, I'm back." I still thought I was dreaming, continually pinching him, but after a while, I realized it was the truth. Tears streamed down my face without stopping as I rushed into his arms. I kept asking, "Isn't this a dream? Are you really back?" Destined consoled me and apologized for making me worry. I was so happy that I couldn't stop laughing. My embrace tightened, and I recounted the moment Destined was supposedly in trouble, evaluating the situation wrongly. Destined assured me that everything was a trick to deceive our enemies. He explained that it was all a scheme by DUC and Anime Shinkana, who conspired against us. They collaborated with the enemy, spreading false information, faking a plague, and causing chaos throughout the empire for their selfish gains. Destined emphasized that this was the limit of his patience, and he would make them pay dearly. Listening to Destined's account, I nodded in agreement, recalling how Anime had been associating with DUC lately. Destined continued his narrative, revealing that the information about his death was part of the deception. His eyes grew more dangerous as he spoke. Destined reminisced about his relationship with DUC, who had turned increasingly wicked over time. DUC's actions, driven by a desire for power, led to the widespread epidemic and even harmed me and the Emperor. Destined had reached his limit and vowed to make DUC pay the price for his actions. I asked Destined if DUC had announced his death, and if so, what he planned to do. Suddenly, there was a knocking at the door, and DUC's voice could be heard. He asked if I was awake. The knocking intensified. Destined, hesitant, asked if he should reveal himself now or wait for the right moment. He gently kissed me, asking if it was all right for him to stay hidden for a while. I agreed, understanding the urgency of the situation. Den quickly climbed out of the window, leaving me with a sense of relief. At that moment, the second prince entered. He sensed something was wrong and inquired about the situation. I reassured him, pretending everything was fine. DUC, still suspicious, smiled and said he had misheard earlier. He insisted that Den could not have survived and returned. I played along, pretending to be amazed at the pleasant turn of events. DUT, seemingly satisfied, left the room. I urged the prince to take me to Den immediately. However, he hesitated, stating that it wasn't the right time yet. He asked if I would blame him for keeping Den's return a secret for a while. I assured him that I would agree to anything for now. Den re-entered the room, and I rushed into his arms again. DUC, unaware of Den's return, seemed pleased with the current situation. I tried to keep up the act, willingly agreeing to DUC's demands for the time being. As we left the room with DUC, I couldn't help but glance back at the window. In my heart, I silently prayed for Den's safety, hoping he would return soon to rescue me from this predicament. A new day dawned in the palace of the second prince. At this moment, servants were bringing a new dress for Oyef. However, faced with the coercive and urgent attitude of the servants, Oyef couldn't help but feel frightened and evasive. She firmly refused to comply. Oyef dealt with the two with a determined attitude, inviting them to leave and insisting not to wear the dresses again, expressing her dislike. The second prince had been standing there for who knows how long, responding casually to Oyef's aversion. "Why is it that I find it amusing?" he remarked. Saying this, he quickly snatched the dress from the servant's hand and presented it before Oyef. With a tempting smile, he urged her to put it on, claiming that it was a specially prepared dress that would undoubtedly make her look beautiful. He expressed his eagerness to see her wear it. Confronted with the coercion hanging in the air, Oyef couldn't bear it and shouted loudly at the second prince, "I am not a doll for you to dress up. I will wear whatever I want. I am the daughter of Duke Vulgar, and you cannot treat me like this. Let me go home." However, her stern attitude only seemed to test the patience of the second prince further. He frowned at her and, with a lower tone, declared his intention to ascend to the throne soon, making her his queen. He suggested utilizing this time to cultivate their relationship, emphasizing that with the absence of the VIA family, there was nothing Oyef could achieve by returning. Staring at the second prince, with a mix of fear and defiance, Oyef seemed to have unintentionally disrupted his patience. Furthermore, he coldly remarked that she might have forgotten the presence of the VIA and NEO families in the palace. He even mentioned the seemingly incompetent Khuong. The news hit Oyef like a shock, realizing that this villainous character was not to be underestimated. The situation deviated significantly from the original plot. In principle, the brilliance of the male and female leads was strong, but they only appeared on stage a few times. The story was taking an unexpected turn towards a dark and twisted path. Oyef, who had been previously treating the second prince with sweetness, witnessed his abrupt change in demeanor. The situation escalated quickly, and now the once amiable character turned into a menacing figure. 10 seconds ago, he was threatening the one he loved, and in the next second, he switched roles, portraying a man deeply in love. Oyef, bewildered by the sudden change, couldn't help but mock him for his excessive acting. The second prince, seemingly undeterred, approached Oyef, his voice filled with arrogance. He warned her not to use unbelieving eyes to look at him, claiming that she should acknowledge him as the ultimate victor. From now on, there would be no other brothers around. Only he remained. Oyef, astonished by the unfolding drama, struggled to comprehend the depth of this enigmatic character. Just moments ago, he was treating her kindly, and now he was threatening her life. As he tightened his grip on her, He menacingly declared that if she dared to anger him, he would make everyone in the house perish. The atmosphere was tense, and Oyef, who refused to submit, challenged him. "Love, I strongly disagree. You're acting too much." She commented on his excessive theatrics, highlighting the character's professional acting skills. 10 seconds ago, he was cruelly threatening the one he loved, and in the next moment he spun around, playing the role of a lovesick man. The situation became increasingly unpredictable, and Oyef faced a difficult decision. Considering the unfavorable circumstances, she reluctantly agreed to comply with the second prince's demands. As the heavy rain poured down from the sky, the entire kingdom was enveloped in an atmosphere of death due to the epidemic. In a dilapidated house, covered in spider webs and decay, the once secret refuge of the Crown Prince Khuong, heir to the esteemed Shinkana family, was revealed. The anxious young man urged destined as the Crown Prince, and the news of the emperor's worsening condition had spread throughout the country. Rumors circulated that the second prince would quickly seize this opportunity to ascend to the throne. The situation was indeed unfavorable for him, but destined seemed unconcerned, focusing on the military situation. When questioned by Aag about the control of the epidemic within the army, destined inquired about the well-being of the soldiers after taking the medicine. Aid reported that the soldiers' conditions had improved, and everything was under control, awaiting the emperor's orders. The Crown Prince nodded in satisfaction, seemingly uninterested in the second prince's thorny situation. Frustrated, Aid couldn't comprehend why the Crown Prince refrained from punishing the second prince, while also preventing his subordinates from assassinating him. Aid confronted the Crown Prince, asking about his intentions. The Crown Prince explained that there was a plan in motion and pointed to the strategic map. He emphasized that it would take only 10 days for the troops to reach their destination, where a deal would be made between the Crown Prince and the second prince. With the outpost now eliminated, everything was set. The conversation revealed the Crown Prince's intention to wait for the coordinated action against the enemies. He swore to make the rebels and the one he loved fall into danger, promising a decisive end for all. The atmosphere in the royal palace was heavy, with the Crown Prince facing his imminent demise and the emperor nearing death. Meanwhile, the most joyous individuals were the mother and son of the second prince. They were celebrating the day he brought Oyef to meet his mother. In front of the elegant lady, Ferdinand, the second prince, respectfully introduced Oyef as the daughter of Duke Vi. The mother scrutinized Oyef's appearance, showing dissatisfaction. However, Oyef, with her sharp instincts, noticed that the woman was not easy to deal with. Ferdinand immediately commented on Oyef's appearance, questioning whether she was the girl her son liked. Oyef, far from being intellectually deficient, recognized the challenging nature of this woman. Although she had been observing for a while, meeting the mother of the antagonist for the first time made Oyef realize that she might have set up this character. In principle, after giving birth to the second prince, this woman seemed to have been imprisoned, enduring a lifetime of humiliation. However, now she arrogantly presented herself. Oyef understood that this woman wanted to keep her under close watch, and there was no intention of any education. Rather, she aimed to torment her. Oyef, hearing this, felt a chill in her heart. Even Duc, who usually rejected authority, found it difficult to oppose his mother. Seeing her son's intention to resist, Ferdinand attacked him verbally, displaying her dominance. She seemed like a beast, wanting to devour her own son, criticizing him relentlessly. Ferdinand, in a fit of anger, exclaimed that she had struggled to raise her son, and he repaid her by treating her like this after a decade. Surprisingly, even though she played the role of an antagonist, she seemed afraid of her mother and couldn't resist her verbal abuse. Facing her mother's insults, The second prince dared not resist, only responding obediently. Witnessing this scene, Oyef couldn't help but marvel at the unexpected turn of events. Even the great antagonist had a day when they were bound by moral principles. Moreover, the seemingly ruthless character exhibited fear and submission in the face of maternal authority. When Nan Ferdinand finally calmed down, all three sat down at the tea table, enjoying tea and engaging in conversation. Still, Lady Ferdinand spoke first. This woman opened her mouth, and it seemed she couldn't utter a single good word. She had urged her son to do things against ethics and common sense. There were rumors about the king not having had any water for several days. Despite that, he managed to survive, seeking opportunities to directly kill him, avoiding night dreams. Hearing these distorted facts, Oyef couldn't help but feel a chill. Urging her son to kill his father, establishing the tragic character of this villainous mother, the script was indeed completely twisted. Seeing Oyef's horrified expression, Lady Ferdinand immediately seized the opportunity to shut her up. She overheard words she shouldn't have and cut the woman's tongue off. Someone even approached to remove the hidden tongue, secretly signaling for help. Save me from this mad woman." The second prince reluctantly glanced at his mother with eyes full of resentment. Now she was his woman, and they were supposed to be on the same side. However, his words didn't calm down the insane woman. Instead, they fueled her rage. She didn't spare any harsh words, insulting foolish people. Previously, she was the fiancée of the crown prince. How could she be loyal to her son now? Oyef could only try to demonstrate loyalty to both mothers. The spy informed Lady Ferdinand of the death of the crown prince. The engagement between Oyef and the prince would automatically be annulled. The second prince expressed his sincere loyalty, assuring he would be faithful to Lady Ferdinand. Oyef, with a hint of self-preservation, acknowledged the importance of staying alive. The prince probably wouldn't blame her for betraying him on that day. True, dying for love was a painfully dull death. The cunning antagonist, touched by Oyef's apparent sincerity, believed the acting was successful. With just a few lies, he was deeply moved, thinking he could finally resolve the crusher's heart. However, Oyef's tactics could only deceive the second prince. Against this mysterious and profound villainess, it wasn't worth much. The woman challenged them, daring Oyef and her family to prove their loyalty by killing the crown prince to demonstrate their commitment. This evil character, full of cunning, easily believed deceptive words. He even seemed emotionally moved, thinking he had finally won the crusher's heart. However, Oyef suspected the sincerity of this woman's 3 realms. Was this what a mother would say? Did she really have some mental issues from being confined in the palace for too long, or was it just a ploy? In the end, the stressful family introduction session concluded. This prince was indeed the beloved son of his mother. According to legend, he wouldn't dare contradict Lady Ferdinand's words, so Oyef was left behind with her. Apologizing, the prince explained that leaving her there was his mother's order, and he couldn't defy her. The room was assigned to her, with servants to take care of her. Someone began acting like a deity, expressing gratitude. The gentle lady expressed understanding, assuring the second prince that it was an honor to have him by her side. The prince, noticing Oyef's strange behavior, didn't doubt it, finding it intriguing. Outwardly suspicious, he asked why she suddenly became obedient, and she began giving grateful excuses. The second prince, captivated by love, believed in the sweetness of her words. From the beginning, he knew she was intelligent. Indeed, they were alike. It was just that she hadn't realized it yet. They were both intolerant of mediocrity, and when he became emperor, she would be the highest woman in the empire. After bringing Oyef into the room and not forgetting the promise, the prince said he would release Count Vie after his mother's death. He would visit her on another day. The door slowly closed. Finally, after a tiring day, OS could breathe a sigh of relief. She couldn't help but sigh. Dealing with the antagonist is really exhausting. Unexpectedly, someone was casually sitting by the window, teasing her. "Really? I thought you handled it quite skillfully earlier," said the person by the window. OS was surprised to see him. Prince Ferdinand quickly approached her, suddenly filled with jealousy. "What? Can't you make a promise for a lifetime? Honestly, if I were to die, would you immediately love someone else?" OS inwardly exclaimed, not expecting Denan to overhear her words. She quickly explained it was just a playful remark. "If not, how could I make the enemy let their guard down? If the day comes when you die, I will follow you immediately." Before she could finish her sentence, Denan passionately kissed her, filling the room with the sounds of their satisfied moans. After a passionate moment, they finally let go of each other's lips. Denan looked at her affectionately and warned, "Even if I die, you must live well." At this moment, OS remembered the conversation earlier and immediately reported, "Denan, Lady Ferdinand is plotting to infect the Emperor with a virus. We need to stop her, otherwise it could be dangerous." Surprised by this shocking news, Denan couldn't believe that the seemingly silent woman was so malicious. OS nodded in agreement, assuring him that Lady Ferdinand was truly wicked. Hearing this, Denan was amazed but couldn't help but admire her intelligence. However, he couldn't hide the concern in his eyes. Despite Denan's concern, OS refused to leave. She suspected that Lady Ferdinand was behind the evil actions and wanted to stay and play the role of an amateur spy to help Denan gather information. Denan, fearing for her safety, tried to convince her to leave, but OS insisted, eager to contribute. The next day, preparations for the wedding were quickly underway. OS, dressed in wedding attire, couldn't believe the speed of the arrangements. She wanted to buy Denan more time, but he seemed indifferent. When questioned, he admitted that he believed the wedding would be famous, and he wanted OS to be the most beautiful bride. OS couldn't hide her surprise at the elaborate wedding preparations. To her, it seemed rushed. Denan, not showing much interest, examined her from head to toe and remarked, "Very beautiful, but still lacking something." He then presented a mysterious jewelry box containing a set of wedding jewelry. Reminiscing about their first encounter, Denan mentioned the time he gave her a necklace which she had returned. OS, feeling awkward, thought, "How could I have been so foolish to be deceived by this charming guy?" Denan, getting closer, made bold remarks, leaving OS feeling uncomfortable. As Denan approached for a kiss, OS felt a mix of fear and uncertainty. She couldn't bear to be kissed by anyone other than Denan. Suddenly, a cunning woman appeared, diverting Denan's attention and saving OS from the impending unwanted kiss. She entered, as if in a deserted place, showing disdain as she spoke. "It seems I've disturbed your intimate moment. A once-in-a-thousand-year opportunity." OS immediately pushed her away, and she hugged her chest, secretly sighing with relief. Perhaps for the first time, OS found the antagonist somewhat cute. Despite the slight help earlier, this person seemed displeased now. The lips were about to meet, and someone had to spoil the party. An arrogant remark about the slow progress interrupted the impending kiss. The blame was placed on the saint, stating that knocking on the door was a basic courtesy. However, according to Enime, she knocked, but Denan was too absorbed in his thoughts to hear it. Facing the situation, Prince Ferdinand reluctantly bid farewell to OS, claiming he had to accompany the saint to the temple to distribute medicine to the sick. The wedding attire was handed over to OS to try on herself. Seeing an opportunity, she asked if she could join. She made a pitiful expression, hoping to soften Denan's heart. Still, Enim and Prince Ferdinand were quick to discourage it. The prince seemed hesitant, looking to Enaim for advice. However, the saint, disliking Os, was determined to prevent her from going along. In her opinion, Os's straightforward nature meant no good intentions. They believed she only sought to disrupt their plan. Os, realizing their distrust, pleaded with destined. She vowed not to cause trouble and promised to be well behaved. Her act involved a display of innocence, resembling a rabbit with bright eyes, a cute pout, and a gesture of nuzzling. The charm seemed to have an effect, and destined was amused. He decided to allow her to join. With a grand performance orchestrated by Prince Ferdinand, the people hailed the arrival of the saint, expressing gratitude for her presence. Enaim's plan to distribute medicine was praised, and the citizens eagerly awaited the miraculous cure. Enaim urged destined that time was running out, and they needed to proceed. Observing the scene, Os couldn't help but feel disgusted by the people's blind trust. Little did they know that Enaim was the mastermind behind the viral outbreak. However, Enaim and Prince Ferdinand reveled in the people's admiration, indifferent to the deception they had orchestrated. Enaim made a subtle remark about her dislike for the crowd, and she held contempt for the people's praise. Despite the sarcastic conversation, the citizens believed that their emperor and saint were saviors sent by the heavens. In the midst of this, a distress call echoed through the crowd. Someone had collapsed. Os, feeling a mix of annoyance and curiosity, turned to see the person who had fainted. The unexpected turn of events added another layer of complexity to the unfolding drama. Shinkana will be your man. I know your situation in the Leon Empire. The position of Crown Prince was threatened, needed the army to consolidate its position. But we can help you do that indeed. This information is fascinating, made Jao think again. He proactively pulled Enaim into his arms and laughed very good agreement. So let's wait and see. My future crown princess will do anything for me. The contract has been agreed upon. Enaim also showed a satisfied smile. Congratulate your opponent. Is Royal Highness the Crown Prince? Hope we will have a happy cooperation. It was almost dawn, but still pitch black, because the heavy rain poured endlessly. There's nothing more comfortable than coming home after a long sleep. Oyef sat up, stretched comfortably, and exclaimed, "Wow, it's really gone too far. I haven't had a good night's sleep like this for a long time. I thought I was still alive." Monologue. Unexpectedly, a familiar voice rang out, teasing her. "I finally woke up, lazy cat. Is there anyone who feels guilty? I'm afraid that the images of snoring then drool profusely will be seen by your lover without missing a beat." I suddenly asked him, when did he come from? The Crown Prince smiled from ear to ear. He happily closed the book. "Tell. From the moment you had a nightmare and called my name in the middle of the night. I'm always with you." Seeing that, Os couldn't help but ask him worriedly, "You haven't slept since last night. Why haven't we been together for a long time?" The Crown Prince kept clinging to Os and wouldn't let go. He kissed her forehead and whispered sweet words. "Whatever you sleep well is fine, something that other things are not important." It's strange that Os doesn't fall flat after encountering these sweet words. I don't know if it's because of how high Lele is happily suddenly mentioning Duc's name. "You were so kind, destined. Although Duc is not strict with me, but with you I still feel more secure. This move is a bit do you know? If you're still calm and flattering your lover, then stop suddenly mention that name as Chai." The Crown Prince was, as expected, immediately became angry. "So, I'm with Duc too. He also trusts me a lot. Yet you dare to let me go home. Is there any vinegar jar? It had the opportunity to ferment and give off a strong smell." Crown Prince Stitch. "Avoid wandering thoughts in your head. The days we're not here. What happened to Os and him? which makes a person as skeptical as DUC. Let your guard down with her again. Seeing him thinking to the point of being in a trance like that, OS raised his voice to break the silence. She hesitantly asked DENR. He is very considerate. Is it true that you are a spy for the DUC? If you really care, I will stop. I don't want you to misunderstand and get angry. There is someone who doesn't say Ra. But the word jealousy is already written all over my face. He brought her hand to his lips and kissed her. I just don't want you to be fooled by another man. You are a treasure that belongs to me alone. Time to talk about love is over. Both of them skipped talking about politics. The Crown Prince informed. I don't know if the news is good or bad. Leon's army capital arrived in the capital 3 days ago, suddenly disappeared again. Have you ever heard DUC talk about this? This made the Crown Prince suspicious. Leon's side used wizards to develop the Dharma of vision. On our side, there is only Khuong alone is to be able to resist these vast magical powers. I'm just sorry that DUC has already detained me in Leo's house. Suddenly, there was a respectful servant's voice. Announced that a guest is coming to visit, causing OS to suddenly turn around and look towards the door. I also don't know who is coming, but it made her stunned. So there turns into a guest. What the servant said was Khuong. The guy who should be Ra should be in prison right now. Yet he was leisurely and at ease. Stand in front. OS is still as chaotic as ever. Teasing doesn't bother anyone. I won't be by your side for that long. But you don't remember me. We will be heartbroken. Long time no see, OS. OS couldn't contain his happiness and ran over, hugged Khuong tightly. A mouth kept calling the name of her guardian angel. Someone just ate 2 jars of vinegar this morning. One belongs to my younger brother, and one belongs to the great man. This magician is a coward. Show up. Even jealousy does not dare to show rare. I only dare to silently resent myself. It's really annoying for OS to meet this guy. Makes people feel uncomfortable. But on the surface, the guy still maintained his composure in asking Khuong, isn't that the day the DUC detained him in prison? How did you get here? I didn't think I would hear about a big prison escape. No one in the world of cinema would have guessed the reason why it would reach its navel. Ra in the flooded city. The dungeon cannot avoid the fate of flooding. So Khuong followed the current and swam out. Just met, and Khuong's smooth talking began incessantly. He enthusiastically engaged in conversation with the prince. When they were in the dungeon, news of the prince's death spread everywhere. However, as predicted, he succeeded the throne. Yet, the prince's condition on the battlefield seemed grim, with a touch of ruin. Upon hearing this, the prince was unsure whether Khuong was praising or criticizing him. He cautioned against jesting at such a serious time. Boaz entered the main topic, announcing that the protective border around the imperial city had been destroyed. Some sinister force had tainted the water source, and they needed to return to Longtime Mountain quickly to stop the dark force. Not fully comprehending, OS suspected the involvement of the sorcerer close to Prince Jao. The prince agreed, expressing concern for Longtime Mountain's safety. To ensure OS's protection, the prince offered to accompany her, creating a momentary truce. Khuong interjected with playful remarks, claiming to be OS's protector. This banter amused OS, causing her to laugh and wish for a harmonious collaboration. As the conversation shifted, news arrived that the Leon Empire's army, which had arrived 3 days earlier, mysteriously disappeared. The prince, now concerned about the situation, asked if OS had heard about this from DUC. OS speculated that Leon might be using sorcery to strengthen their position, and Longtime Mountain might be in danger. Interrupted by a courtier announcing a visitor, OS turned to see Khuong, who had apparently escaped from prison. He engaged in casual conversation with the prince, hinting at the prince's expected succession. The conversation turned serious as the prince revealed the border's destruction and the threat to Longchime Mountain. Oyef proposed that the sorcerer near Prince Jao might be responsible, but Khuong suggested a more intricate plan. The trio headed towards the divine temple, where a storm raged. The people protested against the temple, accusing it of spreading a contagious disease. Oyef worried about the implications of the incense on the people's health, but Khuong assured her that the prince had planned for this. Anime, in distress, commanded the temple's knights to capture the protesters, creating chaos. In the midst of the turmoil, Anime accused Duc of attempting to strip her of her saintly status and blamed him for the temple's destruction. Anime, taking advantage of her fake saintly status, ordered the temple knights to apprehend the second prince. Her accusations were met with laughter from Duc, who dismissed the responsibility. Anime, furious, exploited her position and commanded the temple knights to capture the second prince. The knights immediately rushed to restrain him, leaving the prince astounded at being checkmated so abruptly. The narrative unfolds with Anime committing acts that challenge the authorities. Despite her audacity, she's confident in her actions, openly accusing the second prince of various crimes. Duc, the supposed criminal, is accused of seeking the throne, using poisonous substances, and defending the people with a magical temple. Anime, vengeful and threatening, plans to report the crimes to the emperor, suggesting that he handles the situation himself. In response, the second prince, Nahon too, acknowledges Anime and apologizes for his past behavior. He advises her to release him and warns of potential chaos if harm comes to the people of Leon. He claims he will kill the Leon prince in a few days and assures Anime that she won't be spared. Anime, now with more leverage, questions the authenticity of the second prince's claims and demands his replacement. She plans to open the city gates to welcome the army of the Leon Empire. Unbeknownst to the prince, Anime has a larger force and chaos ensues when the city gates are breached. The prince, feeling the threat, tries to break free from the control of the soldiers. Anime, confident and determined, orders the temple knights to surround Duc. The prince challenges Anime, but she remains resolute, determined to use her tactics to regain the people's trust. As Anime displays her dominance, she laughs maniacally, and her eyes grow more sinister. She issues a cold warning to the second prince, emphasizing that he's not the only target. Anime reveals her intention to eliminate those who have wronged her, starting with the one who revealed her saintly identity, directing her sword towards Duc. The tense situation escalates as the city gate is broken and Anime's forces flood in. Khuong, sensing urgency, resorts to using two emblems given by the emperor to repel the invaders. The hidden forces within the city and Khuong's private army may be able to push back Anime's troops. The narrative then shifts to the Leon Kingdom, where the Prince Jao plans a destructive attack. Khuong, a witty character, warns of the urgency to reach the Longchime Mountain to prevent an impending disaster. Anime, now in control, poses a significant threat to the safety of the people, making Khuong and Khuong anxious. In an unexpected twist, Oyef expresses concern for the safety of her family and seeks the help of the prince, who remains reluctant. She wants to accompany Khuong to Longchime to assist in thwarting the impending danger, but the prince, driven by a sense of danger, pulls her back. Oyef, undeterred, reminds the prince of her true identity as the saint and the risks associated with it. Khuong, understanding the potential of using divine powers, agrees with Oyef's concerns. The two characters, Khuong and Khuong, await Oyef's response, curious about the fate of their nation in the face of Anime's formidable power. Indeed, Khuong's prediction was accurate. At the foot of Mount Long, the master Tian from the Leon Empire began transforming the battlefield. After intense efforts, he respectfully informed Prince Jao that the formation had commenced, and today he could finally seek revenge by conquering Orange. By then, even the emperor would treat him differently. However, the sorcerer hesitated to paint a beautiful future for Prince Jao. Upon hearing this, Keyuan and Os dramatically appeared before them. Keyuan loudly declared, "It seems the prince's wishes cannot come true." The unexpected arrival of these two individuals surprised Prince Jao. Leon, with a mocking smile, reminded them not to forget about Orange, as they also had a universe prophet among them. The sorcerer immediately commanded the knights to protect Prince Jao and capture the ordinary woman in front. Os, with a mocking laugh, questioned the concept of an ordinary woman. To enlighten them, Os revealed her divine insignia, glowing brightly in golden radiance, astonishing Prince Jao. Wondering about the nature of this radiant sorcerer, he asked about the sorcerer's divine powers. Finally, Os unveiled her identity as the true Holy Maiden. Her radiant brilliance, adorned with golden flowers on her forehead, frightened the sorcerer. Faced with the chaos caused by Leon's group, Keyulan bowed down to honor the Holy Maiden's protection. Finally, the sorcerer realized the woman he considered ordinary was the true chosen one. Amidst Leon's confusion, Keyuan tried to push Prince Jao to safety, but the sorcerer remained incredulous, believing that Ainanime was the real Holy Maiden. Dismissing Os as a mere imitation, he resisted fiercely, thinking about the illusory victory he had dreamed of. Despite Os using the power of the Holy Maiden to awaken herself and breaking the sorcerer's long-established boundaries, the sorcerer stubbornly resisted. He was determined to prevent his master's demise and begged Prince Jao to stay away for his safety. When the sorcerer's dark magic was dispelled by Os and Heyuanen, they triumphantly declared their victory. However, Prince Jao still clung to his delusional dream, lamenting the loss of Orange. In his crazed state, he taunted Os, questioning the effectiveness of her holy eyes. Prince Denon, who had been sent to an unknown place by Os, held on to his unwavering faith. Yet, a messenger rushed in with urgent news. The royal knights of Orange had surrounded their sacred temple. The defeat seemed inevitable, leaving Prince Jao in disbelief, unable to comprehend the failure of his meticulously planned strategies. Heyuan, showing mercy, attempted to calm the frantic Prince Jao. However, he responded with madness and defiance, forcing Keyulan to coldly order his restraint. Yet, the power of Leon's group was not ordinary. At the critical moment, the sorcerer created a battlefield to facilitate their escape, earning praise for his loyalty. He sacrificed himself to protect Prince Jao, allowing them to flee. As Os and Heyuan were unable to intervene in time, the sorcerer's tactics created a dark smoke screen enveloping them. Quickly covering his face, Heyuan protected Os from the toxic magic, and amidst a heavy magical rain, the dark magic dissipated. However, the sorcerer and Prince Jao disappeared along with it, leaving an unexpected turn of events for Os and Keyuan, who were unable to prevent the sorcerer's escape. In the Longchai Mountains, only a silent atmosphere remained. She was the first to notice. The young man exclaimed loudly. They had successfully escaped. However, the situation in Dienan's capital city was completely different. The lifeless bodies of the Leon army lay scattered everywhere, and a river of blood flowed through the city overnight. Seated on a tall horse, Dienan reveled in the victory. Thinking of Os, he couldn't contain his joy. Finally, the day of their establishment had come, and he and she could be together without fear. The one thing he wanted to do the most when meeting Os was to hold her hand and declare their success. Though they claimed to have cleared the enemy forces and the scum within the capital, it seemed that the broom of the prince had not swept away all the remaining rubbish. Faced with the person he used to call little sister in the past, now an enemy, there was nothing but intense anger. She, with her head held high, questioned Den arrogantly. "Indeed, you have not died in these recent days. All the suffering the royal family is enduring is because of you. Is it true, Prince, in the name of justice, accusing this madwoman, Shinkana, the saint, of aligning with the Leon army to attack our own nation? Have you ever thought that if the people of the Leon kingdom take over the Orange capital, it will turn into a hell on earth?" Despite the accusations, Enaim laughed manically, showing no remorse. She didn't even have a hint of guilt. Seeing this scene, the Duke Shinkana might be pleased, imagining cracking open a delicious egg. Born with the announcement, it declared that no one could bear it. Arrogantly, she crossed her arms, mocking Den for not dying in these recent days. All the calamities that the divine palace is enduring are due to his actions. The prince accused this crazed woman, Enaim Shinkana, the saint, in the name of justice. She dared to ally with the Leon army and attack her own nation. Did she ever think that once the people of the Leon kingdom took over the Orange capital, it would become a living hell? Despite the accusations, Enaim laughed as if she were insane, showing no signs of remorse. She didn't even express a hint of guilt. The Duke Shinkana, witnessing this scene, might be delighted, imagining savoring a delicious egg. Once it hatched, it would be unbearable. With folded arms, she looked down on Den, expressing her contempt. "You haven't died these past few days. All the suffering that the divine palace is enduring is because of your actions. Is that true or not, Prince, in the name of justice, accusing this madwoman, Enaim Shinkana, the saint, of collaborating with the Leon army to attack our own nation? Have you ever thought that if the people of the Leon kingdom take over the Orange capital, it will turn into a hell on earth?" Hearing these accusations, Enaim continued to laugh, as if she were insane, showing no remorse. She didn't even display a trace of guilt. The Duke Shinkana, witnessing this scene, might be pleased, imagining savoring a delicious egg. Once it hatched, it would announce that no one could bear it. Scoffing, she taunted Den, believing that he hadn't died in these past days. She boldly accused him of being responsible for all the suffering that the divine palace was enduring. In the name of justice, the prince charged Enaim Shinkana, the saint, with collaborating with the Leon army to attack their own nation. She didn't seem to have considered the consequences if the people of the Leon kingdom were to take over the Orange capital and turn it into a living hell. Despite these accusations, Enaim laughed manically, displaying no remorse whatsoever. She didn't even show a hint of guilt. Observing this scene, Duke Shinkana might be pleased, envisioning the satisfaction of cracking open a delicious egg. Once it hatched, it would proclaim that no one could bear it. Crossing her arms, she scornfully questioned Den, asserting that he had not died in these recent days. She boldly accused him of causing all the suffering that the divine palace was enduring. In the name of justice, the prince charged Enaim Shinkana, the saint, with collaborating with the Leon army to attack their own nation. She seemed to be oblivious to the possibility that if the people of the Leon kingdom took over the Orange capital, it would transform into a hell on earth. Despite these accusations, Enaim continued to laugh manically, showing no remorse. She didn't even express a hint of guilt. Observing this scene, Duke Shinkana might be pleased, imagining the satisfaction of cracking open a delicious egg. Once it hatched, it would proclaim that no one could bear it. The situation continued to escalate, with Enaim's aggressive remarks and Den facing accusations. At this moment, Oyef had returned from the Longchain Mountains, and her footsteps echoed. Oyef leaned in, conveying a shocking piece of information to Enaim. For the first time, a dragon's scale was found in instant noodles. Things got mixed up, cut the director. Let's replay this scene a bit. With a determined voice, OS declared that if Denan chose to kill Anaim, it would benefit her too much. OS had a plan to make her suffer more in living than in death. What a ruthless woman. Meeting her sister again, Anaim seemed even more delighted. OS, on the other hand, appeared to be enjoying her role. They were both wrapped up in the foolishness of DUC. Seeing the situation, OS questioned her sister's actions. "Are you satisfied now, sister? All the men revolve around the foolish DUC. Clearly, I reminded him many times, but he still trusts deceivers like you." Facing Anaim's insane tirade, OS couldn't hold back any longer, cursing her sister. "Today, sister, I will make you aware of the extent of my wrath. Nothing can be done now. Turn away in anger. As long as you cherish what you have, you won't end up in the self-inflicted destruction." Thought Anaim would hear these words and realize the truth, feel remorse and repent, but no, she continued to delude herself, thinking she was genuine merchandise, threatening to be expensive and intimidating. On the contrary, OS, now with every right, scolded her. "What right do you have to lecture me? A girl pretending to have morals dares to be disrespectful to this holy woman. Not even a chance to flaunt your lips and face, and OS goes straight for a powerful move, causing Anaim in pain to the point of wanting to lose her memory. Always ambushed unexpectedly, Anaim covered her face in anger. She looked at OS with an unbelieving gaze. "How dare you slap me?" OS seemed to have run out of patience with this crazy woman, sternly ordering Hanam Shinkana, counterfeit saint, colluding with the enemy, producing diseases to harm the people of the empire, breaking up noble knights' homes, take her away immediately and lock her up. But Anaim continued to resist until the last minute. She pointed at OS and commanded her followers not to believe Anaim's lies. Claiming herself a true saint and noble knight, she tried to maintain her pride, but inside, Anaim was already trembling with fear. Anaim couldn't understand why OS knew she was fake, and she even believed that DUC had accidentally revealed it to OS. If Anaim stubbornly refused to acknowledge the truth, OS would let her have her way. Anaim raised an authentic stamp, proudly comparing it to the fake one. This was enough to make Anaim panic. Her mind was in turmoil, and she couldn't speak. Sweat covered her face, and she felt terrified. Anaim couldn't comprehend why OS knew she was a fake. She even believed that DUC had accidentally revealed it to OS. If Anaim stubbornly refused to acknowledge the truth, OS would let her have her way. Anaim raised an authentic stamp, proudly comparing it to the fake one. This was enough to make Anaim panic. Her mind was in turmoil, and she couldn't speak. Sweat covered her face, and she felt terrified. Anaim couldn't understand why OS knew she was fake. She even believed that DUC had accidentally revealed it to OS. If Anaim stubbornly refused to acknowledge the truth, OS would let her have her way. Anaim raised an authentic stamp, proudly comparing it to the fake one. This was enough to make Anaim panic. Her mind was in turmoil, and she couldn't speak. Sweat covered her face, and she felt terrified. Anaim couldn't understand why OS knew she was fake. She even believed that DUC had accidentally revealed it to OS. If Anaim stubbornly refused to acknowledge the truth, OS would let her have her way. Anaim raised an authentic stamp, proudly comparing it to the fake one. This was enough to make Anaim panic. Her mind was in turmoil, and she couldn't speak. Sweat covered her face, and she felt terrified. Seeing Anaim still in disbelief, the prince affirmed once again that OS was the real saint. Anaim was panicking non-stop. She couldn't believe that her stamp was a forgery. She thought she had won. OS, without hesitation, cast a spell, making the seal on Anaim's forehead shine. This was enough to prove to everyone which one was genuine and which one was imported from Guangzhou. The attitudes of the temple knights were different. They were all shocked, realizing that they had been led by a fake for so long. Now, they were all kneeling down, paying respect to the real saint, grateful for the holy woman's rescue from suffering. Looking at the knights who were obedient just a few seconds ago, now kneeling under the feet of the woman she hated the most, Anaim felt even more furious. Anaim tried to resist until the last moment. She pointed at Oyef and commanded her followers not to believe Anaim's lies. Claiming herself a true saint and noble knight, she tried to maintain her pride. But inside, Anaim was already trembling with fear. Not comprehending why Oyef knew she was a fake, she believed that Duc had accidentally revealed it to Oyef. Even if Anaim stubbornly refused to acknowledge the truth, Oyef would let her have her way. But Oyef didn't give Anaim any chance to retaliate. She immediately ordered the temple knights to arrest Anaim and lock her up for trial. Before leaving, Anaim still tried to turn around and provoke Oyef. She thought she had won, but the real saint had revealed herself. Anaim couldn't understand why everything had turned out this way. Without hesitation, Oyef ordered the temple knights to arrest Anaim and bring her to trial. Before leaving, Anaim still tried to turn around and provoke Oyef. She thought she had won, but the real saint had revealed herself. Anaim couldn't understand why everything had turned out this way. Without hesitation, Oyef ordered the temple knights to arrest Anaim and bring her to trial. Before leaving, Anaim still tried to turn around and provoke Oyef. She thought she had won, but the real saint had revealed herself. Anaim couldn't understand why everything had turned out this way. Without hesitation, Oyef ordered the temple knights to arrest Anaim and bring her to trial. Before leaving, Anaim still tried to turn around and provoke Oyef. She thought she had won, but the real saint had revealed herself. Anaim couldn't understand why everything had turned out this way. Without hesitation, Oyef ordered the temple knights to arrest Anaim and bring her to trial. In the end, Oyef successfully gave the order for the temple knights to arrest Anaim and take her to be tried. The rebellion was temporarily considered a success. Prince Destined could now officially restore his identity. The two of them were on their way to meet the emperor. When the emperor saw his son return, even though he was still lying in bed, he sat up to welcome him. "Destined, my son, I knew you wouldn't disappoint me." Destined knelt down beside the bed. His father recounted with infinite disappointment, "My second son has escaped from the imperial city. I couldn't help him return to the right path. I'm sorry, father." Thinking of Duc, the emperor sighed deeply. "I originally intended to take him down in a coffin, but it seems it's time to reveal the truth. Bring the woman up here." Now, the two, having heard this, couldn't understand what was going on and exchanged perplexed glances. The person mentioned by the emperor turned out to be the cursing wife, Ferdinand. At this point, she had just walked in, but her curses had been echoing in the corridor, insulting the emperor for his cruelty, preventing her from dying and making her want to live or die. Now, she was humiliating him in front of so many people. Listening to the mad speeches of Ferdinand's wife, the emperor, who was already ill, became even more unwell. He wanted to cut his throat to end it all. "Wait until I calm down," the emperor said coldly, looking towards Lady Ferdinand. "Things have come to this point. Do you still want to exchange black for white? Don't think I don't know what you've been doing behind my back, urging the Duke to collude with the enemy, plotting against Destined." Lady Ferdinand showed no intention of stopping at this point. Even at this dead end, she doesn't spare anyone, not even the emperor, who continued to curse vehemently. "It's all because of your insistence on the Duke, who happens to be your son, but you've never favored him before. Destined is the one I've always esteemed. Is this fair?" The emperor's rage reached its peak. He shouted angrily, "Who do you think you are to judge fairness with me? The Duke is not my biological son, indeed." These words shocked Lady Ferdinand, who moments ago was insolently cursing anyone and everyone. Now she was trembling with fear, sweating profusely. She couldn't believe that the secret she had hidden for so many years had been known by the emperor all along. The thought of her cuckoldry made the emperor even more furious. He relentlessly condemned her. "You became pregnant before marriage, and then schemed to climb into my bed. If it weren't for the Empress Dowager begging for you, your master, you think your two bastards could live to this day." The story is becoming more dramatic by the moment, with truths revealed and villains exposed. Not only is he not the emperor's biological son, even the crown prince can't believe it. He hesitated and asked the emperor again, "Your Majesty, what does this mean?" The emperor looked at Lady Ferdinand with disdain, as if looking at a lifelong enemy. Two bulky knights escorted the sick man in front of Anime. She inquired of the high priestess about how to deal with this person. The sick man incessantly talked, and Anime gave orders to the knights to burn him alive. Due to his illness, the man couldn't resist and could only weakly plead, "High priestess, I don't want to be burned to death." Oyef couldn't remain silent any longer. She loudly protested, claiming she didn't mishear and questioned why he deserved such a cruel punishment. Anime, undeterred, asserted that anyone who had taken her medicine and couldn't be cured was cursed by demons. She argued that those unfortunate individuals must be burned to prevent the spread of the disease. Oyef was appalled by Anime's irrational reasoning and commented on the absurdity of her claims. Anime, seemingly unfazed, continued her argument, suggesting that her status as the Empire Saint justified her actions. Oyef retorted, accusing Anime of being a fake who dared to speak with such arrogance. Anime's delusional and exaggerated self-importance didn't scare Oyef. Despite Anime's low-quality threats, Oyef stood firm, stating that Anime was cursed by demons, not blessed by divine spirits. Anime tried to convince the second prince to become the future emperor, emphasizing the support of the loyal citizens. Oyef, addressing DUC, highlighted the importance of reputation to the prince. These words made the prince reconsider Anime's ruthless actions, and he intervened to stop the execution of the innocent man. Anime, in her anger, accused Oyef of being more important than her and questioned the prince's decision. The prince, however, expressed his disdain for Anime and her lack of importance compared to Oyef. The execution of the fake and low-quality Anime follower was harsh, leaving the saint to quickly order the citizens to leave. Anime, in a fit of jealousy, demanded the prince's protection, claiming her status as the saint of the empire. Observing the suspicious figure, Anime immediately ordered someone to rescue the sick man and pursue the potential assassin. Oyef, concerned about Ten's safety, quickly strategized to protect him. Ten, feigning illness, was carefully guided by DUC, while Anime loudly protested. Anime couldn't bear to let Ten escape and desperately shouted for the prince to ensure her safety. She accused Oyef of being a lowly person, seemingly forgetting her own falseness. The prince, unimpressed, prioritized Oyef's safety and questioned why Anime accepted a box of pears. Cursing the prince, Anime predicted that Oyef would be the cause of Ten's death. The prince, with a stern warning, focused on the irrelevant woman, leaving Oyef to depart with Ten under the pretext of being the main antagonist. The careful DUC embraced Oyef, soothing her, while Anime loudly voiced her grievances, unable to accept the situation. As the figure of the second prince calmly walked away, Anime, unable to accept defeat, shouted in despair, realizing she had gained another bitter enemy. Left with no time to nurture her grudge further, Anime, in a fit of rage, vowed vengeance against Oyef, swearing to harm her in the future. Oyef was unaware that the intimate scene between her and DUC today had been witnessed by Ten. He hid in the shadows, making a promise to himself that next time He must get OS out of here, despite his efforts to suppress his feelings. However, DENN couldn't escape the sense of jealousy. He didn't want OS to be intimate with another man, especially DUC. Perhaps the second prince also didn't expect that waiting for him to return wasn't about his mother's loving embrace, but a fierce outburst of anger. The old lady's face twisted in rage, cursing relentlessly, urging OS to lead and spread viruses to the old emperor. The teacup in her hand was shattered, and her mouth continued to spew accusations. The scene was extraordinary, and even the second prince was shocked. Though OS didn't like the second prince much, as a mother, she couldn't fathom restricting her son's morality like this. Mrs. Ferdinand continued her verbal onslaught, emphasizing the importance of the people's hearts over her and her son's freedom. Witnessing this spectacle, everyone was astonished, and even DUC was taken aback. The second prince played the role of a well-behaved son, bowing his head and accepting the blame without any resistance. This angered OS, who widened her eyes, absorbing this new aspect of the world. Although she didn't like the second prince much, she couldn't comprehend how a mother could bind her son's morality like this. Mrs. Ferdinand's anger reached its peak, and she couldn't contain herself. She slapped DUC, causing his face to twist in pain. She continued to scold him, questioning the importance of the people's hearts over her and her son's freedom. The spectacle shocked everyone, and even OS, who intervened to stop the attack, was amazed. OS, in her resolute action, earned DUC's complete trust. Mrs. Ferdinand broke free from OS's restraint and retaliated. The old lady's mouth didn't stop its incessant tirade, accusing OS of interfering in her family matters. The second prince, who had never resisted his mother before, retaliated against her verbal assault without mercy. He agreed with his mother, but assured her that OS would comply with her demands. However, OS, feeling that she had done nothing wrong, tried to use love and understanding to sway the second prince. The second prince stopped and urged OS to understand his and Anim's intentions. He warned her to stop before it was too late. OS, who had been living with them for these days, could see the suffering in the second prince's heart, creating the situation they faced today. Thinking about DUC's childhood with such a heartless mother, OS felt pity. She wanted to use love to change the villainous character. The second prince seemed to have run out of patience. He said he understood OS's intentions, but it was too late to stop now. The second prince revealed that he planned to lead an army across the border, and his elder brother had died, leaving the imperial city unprotected. He vowed to eliminate all enemies and, using military and pandemic tactics, make the empire belong to Leon. Everything was just a chess move to become a king. OS regretted her previous actions and thoughts. She didn't understand why she wanted to change the villain for her own desires, using the lives of an entire empire as a stepping stone. She withdrew her previous words. The second prince seemed truly out of patience. He needed a new prescription, not a cure. Thinking about it, she couldn't help but worry about Dinan. She wondered how things were going on his side, and if he could prevent this major antagonist. Seeing the restless expression on OS's face, the second prince gently stroked her head as a reminder. "Just remain loyal to me, and I will make you the most respected woman in the empire." Hearing these words, OS couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. She was tired and wanted a moment of rest. The second prince, however, casually responded, "I will give you enough time to think carefully. Wait until that archenemy disappears." Finally, OS let out a sigh of relief and, exhausted, fell onto the bed, covering herself. She rubbed her temples and sighed. She wondered when this fake drama would come to an end. Unexpectedly, in the luxurious and silent room, there was a distant echo responding to her thoughts. It was Dinan, the one she had longed for day and night. He joyfully told her, "OS, I've arranged everything. Now, Come with me." However, Oyef paid no attention to his words. She immediately leaked intelligence information. She told him about Duck's plan to pretend to submit to Prince Leon and lead the enemy forces into the capital, intending to eliminate a portion of them. Duck aimed to gain the people's favor and become the emperor. Denon affectionately touched her cheek, smiling. "I had already figured this out, thanks to you. Don't worry, I won't let him achieve his goal. When both sides engage in battle, I will step forward and eliminate them all." Despite this, Oyef had another concern. She looked at him and mentioned that all members of the VIA and NEO families were imprisoned. She worried about their safety and urgently needed to find a way to rescue them. Once again, she refused Denon's offer to go with him, stating that he was busy enough. Denon couldn't persuade her, so he compromised. He emphasized the need for her safety and caution, then handed her a vial of medicine. They had found a cure for her condition, and knights were dispatched to distribute the medicine, especially to severely ill patients. While Oyef praised Denon's impressive capabilities, she couldn't help but think that, despite being trapped, he still had ingenious tricks up his sleeve. He schemed and manipulated, making the antagonist cry in despair. Seeing her bewildered expression, Denon proactively hugged her, tempting her to come with him. Before Oyef could respond, a powerful voice from outside demanded the opening of the door. Oyef quickly opened the door, and the voice identified her as Anaim Oyef. In a hurry, the person urged Denon, saying, "Denon, you must leave. The lower floor is surrounded by the knights of the temple. It seems she's determined to find you." Anaim burst into the room scowling and demanded that Oyef hand over Denon. Oyef tried to appear calm and asked what was going on. But Anaim's calmness wasn't enough to convince her. She accused Oyef of hiding Denon and spreading rumors about him being alive. Shocked at Anaim's persistence, Oyef couldn't help but feel a hint of fear. Despite underestimating Anaim before, she now realized the gravity of the situation. In the past, she had looked down on this woman. Little did she know that Anaim could accept the possibility that Denon was still alive, making him even more challenging to deal with than Duck. Seeing Oyef in a moment of contemplation, Anaim became more convinced of her suspicions. She aggressively interrogated Oyef, questioning whether Denon had been hidden by her. In this critical situation, Oyef had no choice but to resort to a diversionary tactic. She raised her eyebrows in disdain, claiming that this was the residence of the mother of the second prince and that her behavior was inappropriate. Despite Oyef's attempts to downplay the situation, Anaim continued to press her. Shocked at Anaim's persistence, Oyef couldn't help but feel a hint of fear. Despite underestimating Anaim before, she now realized the gravity of the situation. In the past, she had looked down on this woman. Little did she know that Anaim could accept the possibility that Denon was still alive, making him even more challenging to deal with than Duck. Till here, she couldn't help but worry about Denon. She wondered about his current situation and whether he could prevent this major rebellion. Seeing the restless expression on the face of the second prince, Oyef, Denon gently stroked her head as a reminder. As long as she remained loyal to him, he would make her the most honored woman in the empire. Hearing these words, Oyef couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. Fatigued, she avoided eye contact, expressing her exhaustion and the need for some rest. The second prince, however, wasn't in a hurry, casually responding that he would give her enough time to carefully consider. He advised her to wait until the main antagonist disappeared. Finally, Oyef sighed in relief, exhausted, and lay down on the bed. She covered her face with her hands, thinking about when this fake drama would end. Unexpectedly, in the luxurious and silent room, there was a resonating sound in response to her thoughts. Oyef quickly sat up, discovering that the owner of that sound was Denon, the one she had been longing for day and night. He cheerfully informed her that he had arranged everything, and now it was time for her to accompany him. However, OS seemed unresponsive to his words. She immediately leaked intelligence information, revealing DUC's plan to fake submission to Prince Leon, allowing the enemy's troops to enter the capital of the empire. Nan, still touching her cheek affectionately, smiled and reassured her that he had already uncovered that plan. He thanked her for informing him and promised to thwart DUC's ambitions. Despite this, OS had another concern weighing on her mind. She looked at DENON and recounted the imprisonment of the members of the VIA and NEO families, expressing her worry for their safety. She felt the urgency to find a way to rescue them and declined DENON's offer to accompany him, believing she could handle these matters on her own. DENON, unable to persuade her further, compromised. Still, he advised her to be cautious and handed her a vial of medicine that could help with the disease they were dealing with. Then DENON left, assuring her that everything would be fine and that he wouldn't let DUC achieve his goals. Reflecting on DENON's actions, OS couldn't help but express her joy. Blushing, she praised DENON for his skills and capabilities, calling him amazing and good job. She couldn't help but admire him for being a competent male lead. The scene shifted to the room of the second prince, where he and Anime were discussing strategic plans. Anime was concerned about the ongoing events and suspected that OS might have ulterior motives. Anime expressed her worries about DENON, who might have been hidden by OS. Meanwhile, OS, feeling triumphant, decided to visit the second prince and provoke Anime, who had betrayed her family for DUC. Anime, caught off guard, didn't expect DUC to attempt to cross the bridge stealthily. Believing that she would not allow the man to drag her out of her position as the saint, Anime confronted the second prince. Anime was determined to expose OS and DUC's actions, claiming that DENON was alive. She accused OS of secretly helping DENON and providing medicine to the people. Anime's accusations seemed to hit a nerve with OS, who found herself in a precarious situation. Anime demanded DENON to come out, but he was already gone. DENON playfully applauded OS for her successful manipulation and praised her for creating chaos. He then initiated a passionate exchange with OS, making up for the longing they had endured. While in the second prince's room, Anime confronted him about OS' intentions, suspecting that OS might be plotting against them. Anime expressed her concern that everything they had done might crumble if they continued down this path. However, the second prince seemed lost in thought, recalling the words OS had spoken to him earlier. Anime, frustrated by his lack of response, raised her voice, asking if he was even listening. In the emperor's chamber, silence prevailed. Despite Nihon II's desire to visit, he was blocked by two guards who informed him about the emperor's concerns regarding potential infection. Nihon II sighed, realizing that every time he tried to visit, there were always excuses to avoid him. Concerns were rising not only for DUC, but also for OS. OS remembered the time when the crown prince gave her medicine for the emperor, fearing that his condition might worsen. Taking this opportunity, OS decided to call Nihon II back and suggested trying to see if the emperor would allow it. The story shifted to Anime, who had made up her mind to take action. Believing that DUC's ambition would not be satisfied under someone else's command, she was determined to meet with Prince Leon. She expressed her thoughts to the second prince, accusing OS of having no loyalty and expecting that she might be considered worthless once DUC accomplishes his goals. Anime decided to take matters into her own hands, planning to meet Prince Leon and explain the situation. Anime assumed that OS would not sit idly by, and it was better for her to take the initiative. Even though the second prince initially seemed indifferent, Anime persisted, emphasizing that OS could become a liability. Convinced that she couldn't sit still and wait for her fate, Enam accepted the second prince's request to leave. Before leaving, Enam warned him not to be captivated by Oyef's charm. Left alone, the second prince sighed, considering Oyef's previous words about stopping these actions. The scene shifted back to Oyef, who recalled the discussion with Enam. She couldn't help but feel relieved when Enam finally left. However, Oyef couldn't shake off the feeling that Enam might have her own plans. Despite Enam's departure, Oyef was left to ponder her next moves. I am the betrothed of destined. Perhaps the emperor will agree to meet me. If the emperor agrees to meet, I will help him investigate the situation. However, the second prince is very determined. He dismisses Oyef's ideas. Now, my position is no longer destined's betrothed, even though the prince is seriously ill in bed. However, with external forces, he must have known everything that has happened recently. Moreover, DUC thinks that a woman betraying her new lover like Oyef is unacceptable to the emperor. But Oyef still holds hope. She takes out the medicine destined gave her confidently, saying that the book of strategies is unique. I have thought about it for a long time, so I prepared this. Just tell the emperor that destined is not dead, and I have prepared medicine for his illness. Ask me to secretly deliver it to him, and he will definitely meet me. The emperor won't miss the opportunity to confirm destined's life or death. This part, sister, doesn't have to worry about facing difficulties because this is more real than words. The second prince, though skeptical, eventually agrees because he is confident in his abilities enough to make the royal family unable to cope with it. Under his gaze for days, Oyef cannot play tricks. This, perhaps, is just a clever strategy in Oyef's book of strategies. He smiles and looks at her, instructing her to wait outside. Just follow what she said, and if there's anything, scream. True to Oyef's words, the emperor immediately summoned her upon hearing this secret information. Even though he was still pretending, he still tried to ask with a hoarse voice, "Is what Oyef said true? Is destined still alive?" He even cried tears of joy, expressing gratitude to the heavens and Buddha for destined's survival. Losing his only son, what meaning would his life have? If it weren't for still worrying about chaos in the external enemies, he truly wanted to go with destined at that time. Looking at the emperor still pretending to be seriously ill, Oyef couldn't help but be confused about his only son. In principle, although DUC is his biological son, he is still the emperor's son. Setting aside these thoughts for a while, Oyef gave him a bottle of medicine that destined had instructed the spirit to give him. Then she confidently said, "This is the medicine that destined told the spirit to give you. If you want to recover quickly, wait for destined to return." In her heart, she breathed a sigh of relief that she arrived at the right time. If it were later, the emperor might have taken the life-saving medicine. The emperor still had concerns about the situation of his son Oyef, so he could only report the situation to reassure him. He is in the royal city, hiding in a very secret and safe place. He has thoroughly investigated that this epidemic is created by humans and is also trying to suppress it. Hearing this, the emperor was extremely pleased. He stared at the medicine bottle brought by his son, and his eyes were teary. "It's great that my son is still alive," he said, thanking the knight. "Quickly give the key and badge to Oyef. When encountering danger, it can command our secret army." Oyef respectfully accepted these two items. She looked at the emperor with a determined face, promising not to disappoint his expectations. Deliver these two items to the hands of the crown prince. After the meeting ended, Oyef began to tell the second prince about it. Of course, she made up a completely different story. The second prince could not trust the accuracy of this story. He asked skeptically, "Is what you said true? Does the prince really want to pass the throne to me quickly?" Oyef smiled gently. A stomach full of words sprayed out, making the second prince believe. "Indeed, that's why the emperor didn't meet you. just because he didn't want to see you so seriously ill. Moreover, he said he is currently the emperor's only son, so he truly hopes to see you at the wedding with me." Hearing this, the second prince was happy on his face. Perhaps this is the first time he has been rewarded like this. He promised eagerly, "Wait until I defeat Leon's people. I will definitely fulfill his wish to see the throne passed on to me." While the story was still happy, suddenly a subordinate rushed in to report that something was wrong. The second prince immediately questioned who the kidnapper was, and his heart surged with a sense of unease and suspicion. Isn't it that DENRN is not dead? If the Duke VIA is kidnapped, what about everything OS has done for me? However, maybe the Crown Prince had anticipated these thoughts, so he saved the people of Shinkana and Tliya first. Someone behind the scenes is silently rewarding their lover. DENRN is really insightful. Afraid that OS would be suspected by DUC, he deliberately created a fake kidnapping to free her from danger. Unexpectedly, the next words of the servant made US turn black in the face. Now the fake saint is about to stage a rebellion, saying that she wants to execute Duke VIA. At this moment in the prison, curses echoed incessantly, replacing the sour taste of anime. She had implicated Duke VIA in the matter, subjecting him to relentless torture. Her mouth continued to spew vile words, accusing anyone of being the prison thief, especially targeting Duke Neo's cell, located right in front of hers. Duke Neo, seemingly unaware, maintained a stoic demeanor despite being covered in blood from the relentless torture. Instead of confessing, he merely offered vague excuses. Anime, infuriated, with a face as dark as a pot bottom, displayed an unhidden viciousness and impudence. Challenging Anime, she dared to provoke her by attempting to touch Anime's father. At this moment, the second prince, Leon, approached and questioned what Anime, the saintly lady, was doing. His unexpected presence caused Anime to react, but she had her justifications. Anime boldly declared that she was interrogating the prisoners to find out who dared to brazenly steal from the prison, emphasizing the Shinkana family's involvement. She accused Neo of orchestrating the entire incident as revenge against HAIDE, claiming that HAIDE was still alive and responsible for recent events. The second prince, tired of Anime's aggressive attitude, dismissed her with a cold gesture, leaving her with a stern warning to resolve the matter quickly. Anime, enraged, shouted at the Duke, insisting that he would regret the choices he made. Meanwhile, a royal carriage approached the residence of Duke VIA. The Duke, concerned about the well-being of the Crown Prince, inquired if the Crown Prince was still alive. Anime's revelations shocked both father and son, as they learned that the mastermind behind the prison break was DENRN, who was still alive. DENRN's cunning plan served dual purposes, alleviating the Emperor's concerns and facilitating a convenient escape from prison. The time was critical, with the medical team successfully administering the Emperor's treatment. OS acknowledged DENRN's maturity and expressed concern about dealing with his complex nature. Despite the tense situation, OS trusted in DENRN's ability to handle himself. DENRN, ever the loyal servant, assured the Duke that dinner was prepared. The Duke and Anime, entering the mansion, were met with a surprisingly welcoming reception from the servants, while DENRN silently urged them to escape. Fearing that Anime and the second prince might discover DENRN's presence, OS hurriedly urged DENRN to escape. Anime, with her keen eyes, could potentially expose DENRN, creating a dilemma for them. DENRN, in a favorable position, pulled Anime into an embrace, comforting her and reassuring both father and son that everyone present belonged to him, including the Duke's assigned guards. The atmosphere became more relaxed, and even the Duke bowed to both of them, indicating a change in his attitude towards DENRN. It seemed that the past animosities had dissipated, and the Duke, along with his guards, showed a more open and welcoming demeanor. Oyef shared the news that the Emperor's treatment had been successful, and Denon presented the two insignias the Emperor had given for Duke Vi. These tokens further impressed Denon, as they symbolized a significant advantage against any potential adversaries. Meanwhile, the conflict between Prince Leon and the rebels reached a critical point. Leon's army was advancing towards the capital of Orange as planned. The rebels, unaware of Leon's survival, were confident in their upcoming victory. Back in the royal camp, Prince Jao received a report about the widespread epidemic in Orange. The rebels were counting on using a cure for the disease to gain the support of the people once Leon's army arrived. However, Jao, being cautious, had already made contingency plans to counteract DUC's schemes. In the midst of these discussions, a soldier interrupted, announcing that a woman named Anime Shinkana sought an audience. Jao, curious, wondered why she had come. As Anime entered the tent, Jao, in a relaxed posture, inquired about her intentions. Anime quickly informed Jao about Aad, the heir of the Shinkana family, being alive and returning to Orange. She emphasized the importance of her message, catching Jao's attention. However, Jao, remembering Anime's association with DUC, expressed skepticism, considering her unreliable. Anime countered, revealing DUC's treacherous intentions towards Jao, claiming that he planned to use this opportunity to betray him. Jao, unimpressed, questioned Anime's loyalty and wondered if she could be playing a double game. Unfazed, Anime asserted that she sought to expose DUC's deceit and save herself from the dire fate that awaited her. Despite Jao's doubts, Anime stood her ground, challenging him to weigh the risks and rewards. Jao, intrigued, contemplated the possibilities, but he was not easily swayed by Anime's words. The confrontation between the two continued, with Anime refusing to back down from her claims and Jao maintaining a cautious stance, uncertain of Anime's true motives. "I want to become your wife." The story was funny, and Jao was funny. He laughed, grabbed her chin, and spoke contemptuously. "You think with your identity, then you have the qualifications to become my crown princess. Why are these two people really two people?" Anime confidently shows off its road profile. "I just need you to marry me, one of the two great nobles of the Leon Empire."